Welcome to episode 83 of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Nate, and in today's interview, this is going to be a recording of a coaching call that I did. So I got an email from one of our customers, and she was really struggling, was getting very frustrated and overwhelmed because she keeps getting in the low 70s on some of her sections, and she's had a few exams lapse at this point. And when I got on the phone with her and heard what she was doing, really it just sounded to me like she was making things more complicated than they needed to be. Once we get into the actual call, you'll hear her describe all the things she was doing to try and track her progress and make improvements. And that kind of stuff does make logical sense to get really nitty gritty and try to track every little topic and how well you're doing on every little topic. However, as you'll hear, I just kind of told her that I think you're making this more complicated than it needs to be, and you're spending valuable time doing all this tracking. Your time would be better spent really simplifying your process and going down to really just the 3 key steps from some of our other videos on how to study for a retake. So if you are listening to this and you've really struggled with spending a lot of time, but not really getting the results, or maybe you've failed the same section a few times, I think you will find this episode really helpful. So with that being said, now we will get into the coaching call.
I followed your method not as intensely for audit and reg. Reg went better for me because I'm in tax. I've been in tax for 5 years. So that one I passed on my first try. It took me twice, but I got a 73 the first time and then, took it again back to back kind of with reg and passed those both. Unfortunately, then with BC, that one was a little harder for me, but I actually ended up really enacting a method. For the other two, I did I would go through your notes and make flashcards on things that I didn't really know before based on my material, but I really drilled it for BC. But what I did was I set up an Excel file, and I know in one of your podcasts you had said how there were people that said that they earned their evenings by doing maybe a full 100 MCQs a day or something. So I liked that idea and I wanted to do that for BC. So I had a column for all my tests, 1 through, whatever, what my percentages of what I got, basically. And then I put out each chapter and subchapter. I saw what my percentages were for those, my scores or whatever. And then I would just try to improve on those. So I'm all right, this one's a little low. Let me work on these. And I went section by section, would do all my incorrects the next morning, and then update my scores and see how I improved, or, if I declined in any areas or whatever. So I'm all right, that worked for me. I know I barely passed, I got a 76, but I'm what, that's fine. I'm going to do the same thing for FAR. Obviously a lot more sections than BC. I think there's 7 chapters, and compared to 20. So it's a lot. And then I was what, I really am scared about this test. I'm going to do it on steroids. So I did 200 questions a day. And then it all of a sudden worked itself up to almost 300 questions a day. I was just obsessed and absolutely miserable, but I was just
yeah, that's a lot.
So anxious. And I was slacking in work because I was I just want to do well. I want to do everything in my power to do well on this. And then I started color coding based on percentages. If it was above 75, I'd give it a green, and then orange was so I wanted to make sure I cleared all the red ones, work my way up. And I'm I just want to start the test with all higher scores. I didn't fully get around to that, but all my scores are really high. And overall, my last few, the week leading up to it, I was getting 80, high 80s, 90s on all my practice tests. And so
just once practice tests, meaning what? If you get an 8, a full practice exam in your review course?
It would be the 30 multiple
instead of 30. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm all right, I feel I'm feeling pretty good, and, I would work also, instead of just doing a full overall, I would always do overalls, but I would also hit the sections that I was really lacking on. So I could kind of improve my scores. So yeah, that's how it ended up getting so high. Cause I was I'll do my standard 33 or whatever twice. And then I'm all right, now I'm I got my incorrects to do. I got review of these sections to make sure I can up these scores and percentages. And So all of a sudden it was getting up to like 286 a day. And I'm like, oh my God, like I was just exhausted. I had horrible insomnia. Like I couldn't sleep. So I was like, I had no sleep. And I'm like, all right, I know you're supposed to retain the most when you're sleeping and I can't sleep. And I mean, Benadryl used to knock me out, but I could take a Benadryl and probably go run a mile around my block. Like I was like, it didn't work. Like it was miserable. So I just think I was really anxious and just really, it's just the anxiety of it all just was horrible. So
Yeah, and that can be, really detrimental on its own. So how's the timeline working out right now? Like you've had two that's lapsed, right? And
yeah.
then how close are you to losing the one that you currently have passed?
I'll have a full 18 months because I just took BC. I think I took it at the beginning of February. So I have like a lot. I'm not worried about that one lapsing because I'm planning on finishing this as soon as
Oh,
possible.
gotcha.
I think that's like the most, I think that was the added factor for this was the time constraint of knowing that, all right, like I knew Reg was going to lapse on the 13th of February. So I took my exam on like the 11th and I was like, all right, this is my last chance,
Mhm.
and then obviously now the 5th is when audit's going to expire. There's no way I'm going to physically be able to do that. Like, so I know that's going to expire.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about BC because that one, I now have the 18 months. I'm not taking any breaks from this like I did before. The only area I don't think I practiced as much in is maybe the Sims, but I don't know. Is there such thing as overstudying? I think maybe I might have overdone it and
Yeah.
exhausted myself.
So, yeah. So one of these calls that I did, it was this lady that runs a hedge fund. So she's super smart and she was trying to get the CPA, to just add even more credibility to her, whatever, her career,
Yeah.
whatever. So I got on the call like this and she explains everything she's doing. She pulls out these like multiple notebooks. She's made notes of every little thing. And I was like, okay, listen, you're making this too hard. Like, that's the biggest problem. You're making it too hard. So I like the first thing I would say to you after hearing that is I would actually stop meticulously tracking your scores in every little area. I would do so you can interpret this however you want, but this is what I would do. So at this point, the nice thing is every section you're going to take is now a retake, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been through everything, like however you did that originally, you've been through everything. So which one are you going to go into next? Bar?
I'm gonna do fire again since it's like so fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you score in that?
73.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I've been increasing each time. I have
Yeah.
58, 65.
With the
68.
73, I guarantee you'll pass if you'll just make this simpler. Here's what you need to do. When do you study? In the morning?
I mean, well, this last time was literally obsessively from 7:30 to like 10 at night. So, like, I mean, I would take breaks obviously to work, but like, I was just, I know the whole 2 hour in the morning, but I was like, I'm going to do this all day. So I'm going to like
Yeah.
overdo it to the point. So, I mean, I can definitely probably start my mornings at like, since I work from home, it's so much easier. I mean, I start technically my work days at 9. So if I start at 7, I would have the 2 hours. So I
Yeah.
do it that way.
Okay. Have you seen the YouTube video I have on like how to study for a retake?
I think I have watched it before, but it's not completely fresh in my head exactly all this.
Yeah, so I'm basically just going to give you that, but there's just 3 steps basically. So when you study, you can view your study windows in like a 2-hour block. So if you just want to do one in the morning, and then if you really want to do another one in the evening, that's fine. But the 2 hours in the morning, just make that kind of your focus. And that should be 2 sets of 30 multiple choice, just pulled from everything. Don't go on specific topics. Don't try to pull up questions that it's all questions you've missed. Don't worry about any of that. It's completely cumulative, random from the entire section. So you'll do 2 sets of 30.
Okay.
And then just 1 set of 5 to 7 practice sims.
Okay.
And that should be roughly your 2-hour morning session. So after you take each set of 30, you're going to review your answers, obviously, read through each explanation, even the ones that you got right. Like you look at it, if you got it right because you actually knew it, then great. That's it. A lot of times, there will be maybe 2 or 3 per set that you possibly kind of guessed on and it was right, and just kind of make a mental note of that. And like, okay, I understand why that was right, even though I basically guessed. And then the ones you get wrong, strictly off of, again, get rid of your Excel sheets and everything, strictly just from your own memory. If you come to a question that it's just something that you actually struggle with and you routinely miss questions on that topic, or it's hard for you to remember a certain type of journal entry, confuses you, or whatever it is, something that you just personally struggle with, that is what you, in these sets of 30, is where you take the time to explain it back to yourself until you get it. However, you are confining yourself to the explanation just for that one single question. So what I mean is a lot of people they'll be reviewing and they'll see a topic that's like that, just one question, and they'll think, oh yeah, this whole topic I just struggle with. So then they'll go on this like 5-hour deep dive or spend a bunch of time on that one individual topic. And don't do that. Just confine yourself to the explanation provided for that one single question. Even if it's on a broader topic that you struggle with in general, just talk the explanation that you're looking at back through to yourself till you understand it.
Okay.
And like make just a quick flashcard on that. Then when you do the 5 to 7 practice sims, you're not even really necessarily trying to complete them all like in test format. So these are a little different than how you would do the 30 multiple choice. You click through the 7, let's say 7. Click through the 7 sims, go to the hardest one first.
Okay.
For you, whatever, for you personally, you can try to fill it out, but as soon as you're stuck. So what I'm saying is anything that you can you want to take the time to understand what it's asking, maybe look through the little exhibits if it's one of those complicated ones, and then fill out anything that you can actually just do. But as soon as you are stuck, you want to submit it and look at the explanation.
Okay.
And then the way that I explain sims, you've probably watched the pro video on this, is you want to find the sims that are hardest for you. And then you look at the explanation and you do that same exercise. You take it piece by piece. If it's one certain journal entry, you explain that to yourself. Like, okay, when this type of a transaction happens and there's, this thing, this is the entry and this is why it hits these 2 accounts. And you would make a little flashcard for yourself. So you're trying to break those complicated sims, or even if they're not complicated, if it's, again, something you struggle with, you're trying to break the sims into pieces and then explain those pieces, get to where you can explain each little piece back to yourself.
Okay.
And then, so that's step 1 and 2. Step 1 is just the 2-hour format, 2 sets of 30 that are random from everything, and then 1 set of 5 to 7 practice sims. And that step 2 is just the review flashcard process for just things that you keep coming across, that you keep missing. If you're reviewing the set of 30 and it's a question that you missed because you read it wrong, but you're pretty comfortable with the topic, you don't need to spend the time to like write a flashcard. It's just, what these are. Like, yeah, that explanation kind of confuses me, but just explain it back to yourself, but confined to the explanation on a per question basis. So you're not going to go back to full lessons anymore.
Okay.
Like with the 73, like I guarantee you, if you do this have you set a test date for this?
I haven't. I went in after I was all upset yesterday and I got past it. I was like, no, I'm going to keep going. Because at first I was like, I'm going to quit. I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I put myself through so much already. No. Like, there's no way. So I'm like, yeah. And I went and I applied for FAR and REG because those are the only 2 I can right now, since audit didn't technically lapse yet, even though I'll apply for that one. So I haven't gotten the like payment coupon to pay for the actual test yet. But
all right. Yeah. So whether it's, I don't know, 3 weeks, like I would probably set this 3 weeks away, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, like max, because you don't want to do this for any longer than that. I would probably say 3 weeks.
Okay.
So that's step 1 and 2. Step 3 is be very diligent throughout the rest of your day about the mini sessions.
Okay.
And so again, with those, this is maybe there's like 3 steps within step 3. You want to use all three study tools at different times throughout the day, just because I can't explain, I'm not like a brain researcher, but using all three throughout the day is significantly more impactful. It just helps you make connections through different, I don't know, different modalities almost. Like you're hearing the audio notes at some point, you're reading the review notes at some point, and then you are taking the little quizzes at some point.
Okay.
So you said you work from home. So I would just try to find or like make opportunities to do those. Like some people have said they'll set a timer on their phone every hour or every 2 hours to like say read 10 pages in the review notes or take a quiz or whatever.
Okay.
Or the other way that people do it is if they get a text or they want to just, do the mindless scrolling for 5 minutes, just kind of take a mental break. Before they do that, they force themselves to either take a quiz or read a few pages in the review notes.
So they kind of like earn their phone time back,
Yep, in little 5-minute segments or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
All
right. So like the mini quizzes, I can use probably like your app, the app for like the questions, and just do like 5 minutes, like or 5 questions, and
Yep.
like just and then just do some audio. Okay.
Yep. But alternate. So when you're doing things where you're looking at your phone, try to just make it 50-50 between doing quizzes and reading the review notes.
Okay.
And with the review notes and audios, you want to start from the beginning of FAR and just work your way all the way through. It's just like the 30 questions. You're just trying to get repeat exposure from beginning to end over and over and over on everything. You're not trying to worry about weak areas. That like makes sense. It's counterintuitive, but you will score higher by constantly doing random stuff from everything.
Yeah. And I can see how that makes sense too, because it's like I really, there were certain things that I really wanted to focus on this time around. I like really, really drilled the statement of cash flows. I'm like, I gotta prepare this whole thing. I like gotta know how to do it front and back. And I didn't get a single question on it this time. So I'm like, well, that works. Yeah. And I'm unfortunately in one of the states that doesn't show you what the weekend strengths are. They don't show.
Oh, really?
I haven't had that. So I just have to just go. I did notice that multiple choice got harder, which I've heard that means you've done well.
Yeah.
And I would like flag each one that I was not 100% sure on and count those as wrong in my head. So I'm like, all right, well, right now I think I even have like a 79-80, based on how I'm counting these as wrong, even though I'm pretty sure I got them right. And then with the Sims, I had 2 research questions that I know I got right, so I'm like, probably one of those is throw out. But then I got like a diluted EPS, and like I just wanted to check because I knew how to do it. But in the authoritative literature, they did an exact example problem, like number for number. So I'm like, oh, I know I got that right. Like I remember, like I sat there for like 10 minutes. I'm like, this is for real. Like, how lucky was this? I'm like blown away that I didn't pass. I was like, it must have been just, obviously it was just one little thing, but I'm like, the Sims, I was like, I felt really good on. I had some that were a little hard, but it must have been just one freaking thing.
Yeah. Like a 73, 74 on a different day would be a 75 or 76, like if one sim goes the other way or whatever. But so that's why I'm saying anywhere from like a 71 to a 74, just doing this for 3 weeks. I say this all the time in emails. I'm like, if you will do this, even though it sounds almost too simple, I guarantee you will pass.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, the last thing I don't know if everyone has times where they could be listening to the audios. I'm just saying, build that in as well so that you're using all three, whether you go on runs, walks, workout, while you're making meals, just have headphones in, like whatever.
Do you think that like really sinks in when you're not 100% focused on it? Like if I were to be listening to while I worked, is that even useful? Because like, because I'm not like fully, it's there in the background or something like that. But if I'm trying to like work, like, is that even a good idea? Or is that?
I've had people tell me that they do it when they work, but unless someone's mind is different than mine, like it's specifically talking about work, I would kind of be like, yeah, that's probably just more distracting if you're trying to work than anything.
Yeah. And I'm not fully listening. Same with like, I'm like, there was like a time where I was like, I'm going to fall asleep to like your audio and see if it just like seeps into my brain. I'm like, I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. I've had people say that too.
Yeah.
If you can stand this. So an interview that I just did that's going to be one of our podcasts. It's not published yet, but this dude was saying that like the game changer strategy for him, even though he had our study tools, he wasn't really doing the mini sessions thing, but he was following all like the strategies in his main study session. And then he got like a 72 and a 73. And then he started really focusing on the mini sessions, and then he scored like an 85. And
wow. That's
so
the one that I'm not doing. I'm not doing mini sessions because I'm like, I'll just do a huge session all throughout the day. Like,
yeah,
I was doing the mini stuff. So I think it was overwhelming.
yes. So two things. This will be easier. I mean, I'm sure this sounds easier than what you were just trying.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And having a complete mental break, I think, is important, where you're just constantly stressing about it around the clock. And yeah, probably I think it is possible to like study too much. The last thing I was going to say, so the thing that this guy said, I think his name is Richard, to end his night, he would start an audio track, because the audios essentially follow the review notes, it's just the audio version. He would start the audios and then pull up the review notes and read while he listened. So it's like going word by word, basically. And a bunch of people have told me that over the years, that just kind of like locks in your focus, and just, I don't know, it's just twice as effective as reading or listening separately. So, I mean, if you can stand it, do that for 20 to 30 minutes, just last thing before whenever you do it, like maybe before you go to bed or right after work or while you're eating dinner or whatever. But that's just kind of maybe another thing. And then the thing you can do when you're laying in bed is reviewing your own flashcards. If you do these on a digital app like Brainscape or Quizlet or something, or even if you're writing them in person, I guess if you're at your house, you'd have the physical flashcards, just whatever your format is.
Okay.
A good thing to do in bed that's not too mentally intensive is just reviewing these flashcards you've written in your own words. So as you do this for 2 or 3 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, you'll end up with, you're not shooting for a certain number of flashcards. I would say that after every set of 30, you maybe have 3 to 5 flashcards to make, maybe. 5 would be a lot, but maybe 5. But you do that twice, 2 sets of 30 every day for a few weeks, you'll have maybe 50 to 60 flashcards. And those should be things that you've struggled with, but you put them in your own words. And as you're reviewing those are incredibly helpful. And that's a much more effective way of working on your weak areas than
drilling
all this intense tracking you were doing. And that's the whole thing.
And as you feel like you master them, do you toss any out? Like, is it just keep them all in?
Well, what do you use for the flashcards? Do you use an app?
Well, I started using Quizlet for like, I would just take notes on everything I got wrong and then put it into Quizlet at the end of the night. And I guess that kind of helped for BC. It must have, but normally I just write everything out on like physical flashcards. But I could always like maybe I can enter them in my phone, and maybe like re-entering something that I wrote down might kind of like.
So the reason I ask is when I was doing it, I was using Brainscape back in the day. And you could like rate flashcards on a color scale. Like green means you got it. Red is like, I missed it just now. And then as you keep doing the decks, it just more frequently shows you like the red or yellow or orange flashcards. And if you rate something as green, where you're just like, okay, this is finally clicked, I know this. You can rate it as green, and it will show it to you maybe once every 20 flashcards or something.
Yeah, Quizlet didn't really rank them, so like I might be misusing it. Maybe there is a way, and I wasn't doing it right. But I'll try Brainscape to see if maybe I can rank them in that way.
Yeah, you could kind of do that with physical flashcards, like set one aside, and just if you end up with whatever 20, 30 flashcards, maybe make piles of like these ones at this point I know really well, and you maybe review those like once a week or something. And then you keep your active pile of like, these are iffy. And that's the ones you keep going through each night. You could get pretty close to the same function.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, part of it is I might have just really exhausted myself. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, which is crucial. Eventually I was able to get prescribed a sleeping pill but they were like afraid because like I think one of the most common ones or whatever, even being a symptom could be memory loss. So they're like,
Oh,
we're not
that
giving you
shit.
something like
Yeah,
that.
that pill is
Yeah, they're like, no, don't do that. And so I'm like,
yeah,
okay, well,
ambient.
what can you give me? Like, and so they
Do
gave
you
me
use Headspace?
um I started Luna, which is kind of similar, but
Okay.
like I've done like I was trying everything, but for some reason Luna, because it's like I don't know if you've ever used that or seen what that is, but it's like more like they tell a story, but you have to like interact with the picture. But I think it just kind of like takes all your focus off from like all the other crap going on in your
Yeah.
head. So, but that helped me. And then, I was taking like a sleeping aid that didn't have memory loss as a side effect. But it's still like I wasn't getting great sleep. And so I think I was just running myself ragged. And I think that's probably what was my downfall then. And yeah, I think having the time constraint was even a huge pressure for me too. And now that I don't have that, I think maybe it should be a little bit easier. And then doing it this way, I already feel like a huge weight off my shoulders. I'm like, this is something I can do. And like, I won't have to do all day and I won't encroach into work where I, lose focus on work. And, so it makes me feel a lot better. Something I definitely can do. If I can do 300 questions a day, I can do this.
Yeah.
More effectively. And then would you recommend, since it's been, 18 or so months since I've taken audit and reg, how long would you tell me like I should give myself for these? Because they don't have like a time constraint, so I can book them later, but I don't want them to take too long, if I don't have to.
I would essentially, even on those two, follow this same format. If there's really something like, I don't know, like audit reports, maybe, if there's really something that's really broad conceptually, but it's like one topic and it's kind of difficult, on one of those two sections, maybe like watch a video here and there, but primarily follow this format.
Okay.
But yeah, so as far as a timeline, like maybe 4 to 5 weeks or 5 to 6, I would say 5 to 6 weeks at the most on those other two. And then on the weekends, if it's like the 2 hours is one block, I would just try to do at least two, so 4 hours and maybe 6. 6 hours is a lot, but it's not like a crazy amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then do you have our pro course videos?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing would be when you do set these test dates, I would try to set these on a Monday. It's not like Monday's important. It's just that for most people, you would have the Saturday and Sunday to kind of do our mega cram session thing, which is just this same format, but for like 8 hours, those last 2 days, just to fill your short-term memory with as much cumulative practice as you can. This will be hard to go wrong. Like doing that for 3 weeks. Again, if you can get 2 days off of work or whatever, it doesn't matter the weekday, but Monday just makes it easier for most people because then you'd have Saturday and Sunday. And then, anyways, go back and watch that mega cram session video.
Okay.
But it's pretty much just the same format. And yeah, if you really feel like you want to study more, you could try to do another 2-hour block in the evening. But I would tell you just from the stress and anxiety, like don't stress yourself out over that idea. If your evening frees up and you got nothing else to do, like you might as well type theme. But what I was going to say is if you nail the 2 hours in the morning and you do the mini sessions throughout the day, just allow yourself to like feel good about it and completely disengage and just know that you've nailed it for the day and not have any ideas of I need to keep studying, or don't stress yourself out if you've nailed like the basics, because the basics will work.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Because I think I just get myself so worked up and so overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh, if I do all of this, so like, drill this so hard, then like, there's no way I won't pass. So I was like so shocked when I opened the score. But yeah, I think this is definitely going to work. And I think you need to de-stress as much as possible. So I think not overwhelming myself is going to be the best. It's going to be the key. So
yeah, well, I'm excited to hear how it works because I'm pretty confident it will work. I mean, and then if you pass far, like you're half done again.
Yeah.
And it's just you can do this again for BEC and reg. It's just you said you work in tax, right?
Yeah, work in tax. So reg is going to be no problem. I don't think 5 years ago, I didn't pass it, but there was just so many other factors involved that wasn't about knowledge. And I think that's what I have been kind of like putting my self-worth, equating that with how well I'm doing. And so it's a huge self-esteem blow because I'm like, oh, I'm just not good enough. And I'm like, or I'm not smart enough. And I know in reality, I do know everything. I'm like, if you
Yeah.
like, sat on my couch and watched me take this test, proctor, like I can do it here, like, but when it comes to that day, that's when I can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it in my sweats and like, at my house, and I won't cheat. You can watch me do it. I think if I actually enjoy it again, but I mean, I hated it when I was doing it this last time. I was so miserable. So I think when I actually start to enjoy life a little bit, this could help a lot. So I appreciate your advice because I was really like, I don't know what to do.
Well, so on that note, I would, again, I don't know what you do in your free time, like if you like going to the gym or running or something active, I would say, but I would try to work that back in the evenings because that's just a huge, again, I'm not a doctor, but I would talk about how that's just it like physically releases stress to like work out or do something active. And if you've just, haven't had time to do that for this long or whatever, or doing it more limited than you have been, like build that back in. That's like just as important as studying. As long as you are doing the 3 hours in the morning, some form of like being active is just as important.
Yeah. And that was something I like put on the back burner. I'm like, I don't know to that. So yeah, I think for sure. Yeah, I definitely will do that. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it because I was like, I wasn't going to give up. I know that eventually I would have come around to it because I'm too stubborn for that. But I was like, I was really in a dark place yesterday. So thank you for like responding to me. I was like, it's a long shot to see if like you would even respond. I'm like, I don't know if you even have time to do that. So I appreciate
Well, I know
it.
you sent me emails before. I get so many freaking emails.
Yeah. Here it is. I'm giving this like novel, but I'm like, I just want to like give you all the background just in case. So it's like, this situation.
So one thing that will really help with the exam anxiety on test day is as you're doing these sets of 30, when you start, have you ever timed yourself? Just when you're at your house, normal studying, how long does a set of 30 take you?
I mean, no, I feel like it kind of depends. And then I'm like, if they're longer problems, I just let the clock run for whatever like that set is. But I don't do where I go back. I look at questions every time I'm done with a question. I look at what the answer is.
Okay.
But that's probably not the best way to do it. I need to do it just like you were saying,
Yeah.
like review that at the end,
Yeah.
just kind of just go through because I don't really know. I wasn't running out of time this time though. I had like 15 minutes left.
Okay. So you're probably in the right range. But what I was going to say is, as you do these sets of 30, first of all, some people get stressed out about just like their metrics on a daily basis when they're studying at their house. And it's like, hey, this isn't the real test. Like, this doesn't matter, but just to work on this. So set a timer for 45 minutes per 30 questions and just try to be done answering questions by the 45 minutes. And if you are consistently doing that, then set it for 40 minutes. And what you should try to get to is like 30 to 35 minutes. And if you're able to do that and just you're doing these 2 sets every day, then on exam day, you're just naturally going to move through the questions faster and leave yourself more time for the sims. Because that's really like the best overall tip for the sims is to leave as much time as possible.
Yeah, because there are a few multiple choice where you get that like I get that panic feeling where my face is hot. I'm like, oh my god, like I don't know this, and like I'm like we're running out of time. So I think working on just like making sure I can get through those as quick as possible is definitely gonna help me too. So.
Yeah. And then just happens to be your exact situation. If you listen to the podcast episode with Cody, I believe, he had 3 laps and then like he left it alone for a few years because that was just he was so upset about that. Yeah. And then eventually like came back and he posted in the forum. He probably won't now because he's now done, but he went through your thing. Past 3, they slowly lapsed because he couldn't pass. I can't remember which section, but and then left it alone for 2 years, completely started over. And in your case, you're not completely starting over. You've got BEC done. You've got a 73 on FAR, which again, I'm saying, I guarantee you pass it this next time by doing this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I like listening to those, like sometimes when I need like a little motivation. So I
Yeah.
do listen to those when they come in through my email when a new one is posted. So I'll definitely, I was like, well, I'm looking forward to being able to delete all of these because I'll be done. But I'm like, nope, not done. So, but yeah, so I still have them all in my thing. Ones I don't listen to, I keep in there. So I'll look for his, and that'll probably give me a little bit more motivation too. So
Yeah, that's everything I would tell you. So,
okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
okay.
it.
But yeah, do you have, any questions on anything I said?
Um, no, I made sure I took a bunch of notes, and I'm gonna definitely, like, I feel like everything's really clear. I'm gonna definitely apply this and not overdo it. So yeah, no, I feel really good, and I'll definitely keep you updated as this time goes on. I mean, once I get my payment coupon thing, I'm gonna book it for 3 weeks from now, and so I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah. I'm pretty sure, well, I'm more than sure. If you just do this, keep it simple, but like execute that format, and then take a mental break at night, do something. It's not like you got to go start exercising every night. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
do things that you enjoy.
right.
Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes it's active exercise, whatever, or a series you've wanted to watch. You just like do things intentionally. Still go to
Yeah.
bed on time so you can nail the morning. Everything affects everything, but it doesn't have to be 24/7 CPA study. Like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't thank you enough. So
Okay. Yep.
thanks so much.
We'll be in touch. So good luck with everything, and yeah, I hope this helps. It will.
Yep.
This will work. All right, so that was the coaching call. I hope you found that helpful and insightful. And whether you're working on a retake or not, there is a lot of wisdom, or there's a lot of progress to be made by keeping your study process simple, as long as you were doing the things that matters. And as you heard me kind of circle back to and reiterate several times in the coaching call, you really want to focus your efforts and spend your time doing what you'll be doing on test day. And then do not discount the mini sessions. So you nail your main study session, whatever that happens to be, but then studying from your phone in small chunks and using all 3 study tools in different sessions throughout the day. So try to have sessions where you listen to the audio notes, have sessions where you read the review notes, and have sessions where you do mini quizzes on the app. You want to be using all 3 resources at different times throughout the day, because using all 3, you are using different study modalities. It hits your brain, has a slightly different effect on your brain and your memory, and it helps you make connections and really assimilate the information in your mind much, much better than just doing one long study session all at once each day. So if you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend or someone you know who's also working on their CPA exams. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.